Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be looking at the Halton real estate market. Specifically for October 2024, we've got the latest data hot off the press from the Oakville, Milton, and District Real Estate Board, or as most people know it, OMDREB. And we're going to try to answer that age-old question. Is it a buyer's market, a seller's market, or somewhere in between?
Well, we've got all the juicy data here, charts, graphs, you name it. It's going to be fun to dive in and see what we can uncover.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
So where do we even begin with all this?
Well, why don't we start with the big picture? Overall, sales are up significantly compared to last October. We're seeing this trend for both single-family homes and also townhouses and condos.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
big change from, just a while ago when it seemed like almost no one could afford to buy. What do you think is driving this surge in sales?
OMDRD's president Anthony Danko suggests it's because many buyers who were previously priced out of the market are finally able to get in the game.
Okay, so it's like more affordable options now.
Yeah, kind of. Prices have cooled down a bit from their peak. And those interest rate hikes everyone was worried about? Well, it seems like they're starting to ease up.
So things are looking up for buyers who were
Yeah,
feeling a bit discouraged.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's dive into the specifics a bit. What's the story for those who are dreaming of owning a detached home in Halton?
We'll get ready for this. Sales for single-family homes have absolutely skyrocketed. We're talking a 55.9% increase compared to October of last year.
Wow, that's a huge jump. But hold on. I think I also saw in the report that there were actually fewer homes listed for sale.
That's right. New listings for detached homes decreased by 7.8% year over year.
So that's interesting. Tons of buyers, but fewer sellers. What do you make of that?
Well, it seems like those who currently own detached homes in Halton, they're a bit hesitant to sell right now.
Makes sense. I mean, if you got a good thing going, why rock the boat, right?
Exactly. Maybe they're waiting to see if prices go back up. Or maybe they're just content with where they are.
So it's kind of a catch-22. More buyers mean more competition,
Yeah, you could say that.
but at least prices have come down a bit, right?
That's true. The median sales price for detached homes in Halton dipped 8.4%, down to $1,280,000.
So it's got to be good news for buyers at least.
Definitely.
But it might make some sellers think twice about listing their properties.
Yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act for sure.
So while detached homes are still in high demand, it's not an automatic win for sellers anymore.
Right.
Buyers have a little more breathing room.
Yeah, but they still need to be ready to move quickly when they find a property they like.
No more sleeping on those offers.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the detached home market, but what about those who are looking for something a little more attainable, like a townhouse or a condo?
Well, let's take a look at what's happening in that segment of the market.
What kind of trends are we seeing there?
Well, townhouses and condos are definitely seeing a surge in popularity. Sales are up 34.3% year over year.
Okay, so not quite as dramatic as the jump in single-family home sales.
No, but still a very healthy increase.
I guess it makes sense. I mean, not everyone needs or even wants a big detached house, right?
Right, especially with the cost of living being what it is these days.
It's all about finding that balance between your wants and your needs.
And your budget, of course.
Absolutely.
So it seems those rising costs might actually be pushing more people towards townhouses and condos?
Because they're seen as more affordable options.
Exactly.
And we're seeing that reflected in the number of new listings for townhouses and condos.
Right, they're up 18% compared to October 2023.
Okay, so unlike the detached home market, where sellers seem to be holding back, those with townhouses and condos are more eager to jump in.
Yeah, that seems to be the trend.
Why do you think that is?
It could be a combination of factors. Maybe some owners of townhouses and condos are looking to upgrade to larger homes now that the market is showing signs of stabilizing. Or perhaps some investors are seeing an opportunity to capitalize on the increasing demand for more affordable options.
It's interesting how all these different factors are playing out.
It's like everyone's trying to read the tea leaves and figure out what's going to happen next.
Okay, so with more listings and steady sales, what's happening to the median price for townhouses and condos?
It's down 6% to $777,500.
Another win for buyers.
It seems that way.
So it sounds like for those who aren't necessarily set on a detached home, townhouses and condos might be the sweet spot right now in Halton.
It's definitely a segment of the market worth considering.
More options, lower prices, and a chance to finally get a foot in the door.
Exactly.
But even with these positive trends, we can't forget about the big A word, affordability. Is it actually getting easier for the average person to buy a home in Halton?
Well, that's the question everyone wants to know the answer to.
Right.
And it's not always a simple answer.
So how do we even measure affordability in this market?
Well, there's a tool called the Housing Affordability Index.
But what does that tell us?
Think of it like a thermometer for the housing market. It tells us how much of the median household income is needed to qualify for a mortgage on a median-priced home.
Okay, so a higher index number means it's easier to afford a home.
Exactly.
And what's the index looking like in Halton right now?
Well, it's actually jumped significantly year over year. For single-family homes, it's up 20.6%. And for townhouses and condos, it's up 17.2%.
Wow, those are some big increases.
It seems that way.
So is it just because prices have come down a bit, or are there other factors at play?
Lower prices are definitely part of it. But remember those interest rate hikes we talked about earlier? Well, it looks like they're starting to ease up a bit, which makes a big difference when you're trying to qualify for a mortgage.
So it's kind of a double whammy for buyers.
In a good way.
Yeah, exactly. The price of the house comes down a bit, and the cost of borrowing money gets a little less scary.
Right.
That's good news all around,
And buyers, at least.
of course.
Yeah.
But even with improving affordability, it's still important to be smart and strategic when buying a home.
Absolutely.
And that's where another important metric comes into play: months of inventory.
Right.
Can you remind us what that means exactly?
Sure. It basically tells us how long it would take to sell all the current listings at the current pace of sales.
Okay, so more months of inventory means it's more of a buyer's market.
That's right.
Buyers have more options and more time to make a decision.
They're not feeling as much pressure to jump on the first property they see.
Makes sense. So what does the months of inventory look like for Halton in October 2024?
Well, for single-family homes, it's up to 3.8 months. And for townhouses and condos, it's up to 3.6 months.
Okay, so not a huge difference between the two property types. But what does this tell us about the overall market dynamics in Halton?
Well, a balanced market typically sits somewhere between 4 and 6 months of inventory.
Okay.
So with both single-family homes and townhouses and condos hovering around the 3.5-month mark, it suggests that Halton's market is still slightly tilted in favor of sellers.
So not a full-blown buyer's market just yet,
Not quite.
but definitely not the Wild West we've seen in the past.
Right.
Things are becoming a bit more reasonable, you could say.
Yeah, reasonable might be the perfect word to describe it.
What are some potential opportunities or advantages that savvy buyers or sellers could capitalize on in the Halton market right now?
Well, for buyers, the biggest opportunity is the increased inventory and the potential for more negotiating power. With more homes on the market, they have more options to choose from and might be able to secure a better price than they could have in the past.
So it's a good time to be picky.
And to take your time to find the right property.
Don't feel pressured to jump into a deal that doesn't feel right.
Exactly.
But before we wrap things up, there's one more piece of the puzzle I want to explore. Remember earlier when we talked about days on market?
Yes.
How that number has been creeping up.
It's a detail that's often overlooked, but it can be quite telling.
Exactly. So for those who haven't memorized the report, can you remind us what the numbers look like for October 2024?
Sure. For single-family homes, days on market increased by 16.7% year over year. And for townhouses and condos, it was up by a substantial 29.2%.
Okay, so what's the takeaway there? Does that mean buyers are becoming more hesitant? Or are sellers just having to be more patient?
It could be a bit of both. On the buyer side, it's possible that they're feeling less pressure to jump into a deal immediately.
Right, because there's more inventory available now.
So they have more time to shop around and compare options.
They're not feeling that same sense of urgency they might have felt a year ago.
When bidding wars were rampant.
And homes were flying off the shelves.
Exactly.
And on the seller side, this increase in days on market could indicate that they need to adjust their expectations.
Right.
It might take a bit longer to find the right buyer.
And they might not receive as many offers as they would have in a hotter market.
So it's a reminder that patience is key.
Whether you're on the buying or selling end of the transaction.
Absolutely.
It's all about adapting to the evolving market dynamics.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on the numbers side of things. We've analyzed trends, dissected data, and crunched numbers until our brains are fried. But I'm curious, what's your gut feeling about the Halton market right now? As an expert, what vibe are you getting?
That's a good question. It's one thing to look at the data, but sometimes you just have to trust your intuition.
Exactly. What's your spidey sense telling you about Halton?
Well, if I had to sum it up in one word, I'd say it's a market in transition.
Okay.
It's moving away from the frenzied seller-dominated market of the recent past and heading towards a more balanced and sustainable state.
I like the sound of sustainable.
Yeah.
It suggests that this isn't just a temporary blip, but a realignment that could benefit both buyers and sellers in the long run.
I agree. And while we can't predict the future with certainty, I think there's reason to be cautiously optimistic about the Halton market.
Cautious optimism. I think that's a perfect note to end on. But before we move on to our final thoughts, let's loop back to that bold prediction from the OMDR RE president. Remember, he said that sales are expected to keep rising through the rest of 2024 and into 2025.
Yes.
Do you buy it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that we can't answer definitively. There are so many factors that could influence the accuracy of his forecast.
It's like trying to predict the weather 6 months in advance.
Exactly.
Anything could happen.
But let's break it down a bit. What
Okay.
factors might support his prediction, and what factors might challenge it?
Okay, let's play a little game of real estate forecasting. On the positive side, we've got the continued easing of interest rates,
Right.
which could make it easier for more people to qualify for mortgages.
And we can't forget about the strong underlying fundamentals of the Halton market, the region's robust economy, excellent schools, and desirable lifestyle. Those will continue to attract buyers.
So even if there are some bumps along the way, the long-term outlook for Halton remains positive.
I'd say so.
But what about the potential downsides? What could derail this upward trend in sales?
Well, a major economic downturn or a sudden spike in interest rates could certainly dampen buyer enthusiasm.
Okay.
And we can't ignore the potential impact of geopolitical events or unforeseen changes in government policies.
So there are definitely some wild cards out there.
Always.
It's really a mixed bag. There are both tailwinds and headwinds to consider.
It's impossible to say for sure which will prevail.
And that's why it's so important for buyers and sellers to stay informed.
Monitor the market closely and be prepared to adapt their strategies as needed.
Well said. I think we've given our listeners plenty to chew on today.
I hope so.
But